New York City is a city entrenched with stories all over the place. Men and women who have lives that were just filled with as much joy and sadness as our own. And while few stories are told of great people throughout the ages, many more are forgotten, ghosts that barely whisper. History is not a constant, where it's divinated from some great source to make some greater narrative. No, history is told by people. And I, as a storyteller, want to remember this man and this place. So that's why I've taken you here today. So let's get into why The Players is a place filled with so much interesting stories. Let's go. The Players. It started in 1888 by Edwin Booth in order to make a place for actors, writers, directors, people of the arts and entertainment industry to hang out and socialize. Right in front of Gramercy Park, which is one of two of the only private parks in all of New York City. To be or not to be. That is the line that Edwin Booth said over 100 times playing Hamlet. He was the Tom Cruise of the Gilded Age. Everyone knew about him, everyone wanted to see him. But why is there a stage in an old brownstone in Gramercy Park? That's because Stanford White, the most famous architect of the time, renovated this place in order to include a stage where today they still have cabarets and rehearsals. But I want to show you all the cool props that are in The Players. Let's go. Welcome to Mark Twain's poker table. Yes, the writer of Huckleberry Finn played poker here on a nightly basis. He was known to love gambling. Right next to him usually sat Nikola Tesla, the founder of alternating current. They were BFFs for quite a while, so much so that when Nikola Tesla took a photo of Mark Twain, by accident, he ended up finding out X-rays, which is kind of a testament to how awesome their bromance was. My fellow citizens, when a nation is overwhelmed with sorrow by a great public calamity, the mention of private grief would, under ordinary circumstances, be an intrusion. Right now we are in the library, which has one of the best collections of theater works throughout the past century in New York City. And this right here is probably the most saddening of all the works. It is a letter written by Edwin Booth apologizing to the American people. You can see an actual copy of the letter right here. And even reading this today is a very sad circumstance. Now, I really want to show you a personal insight into Edwin Booth's life. So let's take a look at his bedroom upstairs. The Players Club also functions as a museum of sorts because they have all these cool costumes from Edwin Booth throughout his career. Now, the costumes were part of the actor because the actor brought them throughout every production throughout the country. You see costumes here from Othello, Richard, and Hamlet himself. But let's go into my favorite part of the entire Players Club, which is the Booth Room, or as I like to say, the Booth of Booth. This is the actual room that Edwin Booth lived in his final days. Just admire this masterpiece of a room. It's kept basically intact as he last saw it. Right next to Edwin Booth's bed is a tiny little portrait of John Wilkes. Now, right in the beginning of the Civil War, the only time the three Booth brothers, Junius, Edwin, and John Wilkes, played together was in a performance of Julius Caesar. Now, Edwin Booth got the main role of Brutus, which was what John Wilkes really wanted to have. The thing is, during that performance, right next door of the Winter Garden, which was the venue, a fire ablazed, and that was set by a Confederate soldier who, throughout the rest of the city, set fires all around in order to burn the city down. They were ultimately unsuccessful. The next morning, while Edwin and John Wilkes are having a conversation, John Wilkes starts really ranting and raving in support of the Confederate soldiers that decided to burn the city down to the ground. Edwin, being a liberal, being in support of the Union Army, had none of it and banished him from his home. That was the last time he ever saw him. 1 year later, John Wilkes murdered the American president, and Edwin never really got that closure he ever wanted, and I assume that's why he still had his portrait right there. But another really cool thing about this entire place is a skull, an actual human skull. According to legend, a man in the West Coast that was charged with being a thief, his final dying wish was to donate his skull to Edwin Booth, his favorite actor of all time, in order for him to use it in the productions of Shakespeare. A few weeks later after his death, they took out his skull, and Edwin Booth ended up using it in all of his productions for Hamlet. And yeah, that's an actual human skull right there. But they have a few backup skulls downstairs. And another cool thing I would like to highlight is his actual pipe. Edwin Booth loved to smoke tobacco, so much so that he has an awesome line here that says, "Behold the vanity of all worldly stuff, gone with a puff, thus and think and smoke tobacco."